Mi nimefika mtaa, nimemhug, it goes to a kiss, and then it goes to, can we have sex? And I'm like, no, I am not prepared for this. It's like, kidogo tu, hata sitaingiza.
Okay.
So me kwenda home, my son hugged me and he cried. Nikamwekelea kwa kifua, nikamwambia just cry, akalia. So I was like, are you done? Hey, so now tell mommy what is wrong. Akaniambia, mom, ebu imagine, msichana mwingine pote ameniandikia barua ati ananiambia ananipenda. Mom, kweli huyo mtoto amenichukuaje? Mom, mimi nataka kusoma. Mom, si unajua tu. So I was like, hey, cool down, this is normal. You see? Yeah, hiyo ni kawaida. Yeah.
The lady was not my choice, you know. Aliletwa tu na aunti yangu, kasema utaoa huyu, you see. By that time sio ile unamtongoza, mnaanza kurelate, alafu mnazoea na mnaishi.
Hello and a warm welcome to Tuko Talks. My name is Lynn, Ngugi. Now, I think the greatest fear for any parent would have their daughter or son come home and say, Mami, mi niko na mimba, ama mam, nimepatiana mimba. And then for this teenage girl or boy to think, ni hepe ama nisihepe. And that's why this conversation on teen pregnancy, yani I had to have it, guys, because it's something we can't run away from anymore. And I partnered with our wonderful friends at Sauti Sasa campaign. And now, without further ado, allow me to let everyone in this panel, this is like the biggest I've had, to introduce themselves. Hola.
Thank you. So my name is Isaac Okelo.
Kwanza kabla tuendelee, najua tulikuwa tumesanitize, lakini hii ni ile tu niwaonyeshe. Mimi so hebu kwanza kabla uendelee, cha nikupakie na utusanitizie mic as the rest sanitizer. Yeah. Endelee. Umeisanitize. Yeah.
So my name is Isaac Okelo.
Yeah.
I'm 21 years old and I'm a teen dad.
You are teen dad.
Yeah, so I have a daughter who is currently 3 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so that means ulikatiana ukiwa na miaka ngapi?
16.
16?
Yeah.
Ulikuwa ushajua kurusha lugha?
Like some things happens because of the environment and you always explain. But tulikuanga tusha janjaruka. Yeah.
Okay. Aya basi utatuambia environment.
Morning everyone.
Yes.
I'm Stella Kamware, a single mom of 2 teens. I'm 35 years old. My son is 14 years old and my daughter is turning 11.
Oh. Okay.
Hi people,
Hi.
My name is Wairimo Susan. I am a teen mom.
Yeah.
My daughter is 4 years old. I got pregnant when I was still 17.
17. So uliingia box ukiwa 17.
Nikiwa 16 nikapata ball nikiwa 17.
Ukiwa 16 ulikuwa unaingia box. Ukiwa 16 ulikuwa unaingishana box. Haya.
So my name is Mbuki Mburu.
Yes.
I'm the Sauti Sasa National and County Coordinator.
Yeah.
It's a campaign that is supported by WIACT and an initiative of Amref Africa.
Okay.
And for us, when you umesema teenage pregnancy ni big issue in this country.
Yeah.
Actually, Kenya is the third leading in the world. So really, we must have this conversation.
Good.
Yes.
Nice to have you here.
Thank you.
Okay.
Morning everyone. I'm Edward Omolo, an elder of 63 years old. I'm 63 years old.
Okay.
Me too, in fact I engaged at an early stage. I got married at 18, exactly 18, which means I was forced by circumstances to get married by my parents because I joined the Kenya Air Force a bit early enough. So I was told that soldiers must get married because when you go to the field, you might be eliminated and your future will just end like that.
Wow.
But when I grew up, I started learning of family values, and we had to teach our young ones of family values so that they can be themselves, not to imitate neighbors, Yeah. So it's something teen pregnancy is in rampant nowadays, and it is a concern to the nation. Thank you.
Really happy to have you here. Okay.
Hello everyone. My name is Rita Anindo Obonyo. I'm a counselor. I also conduct advocacy in areas of mental health, sexual reproductive health, and HIV issues. And I'm particularly interested in issues of teenage pregnancies because number one, 13,000 girls drop out of school annually.
We are talking about 13,000.
13,000 girls. Yet we have a policy, return to school policy. I mean, what is not happening?
Yeah.
Number two, you also speaking about issues of suicide cases. Suicide is the second largest killer in the world. Statistics indicate that.
Yes.
And one of the causes of suicide is relationship issues among young people and adolescents. So that is why I'm interested in this conversation.
Yeah, nice to have you here, Rita. And as you can see, guys, this panel is balanced. I mean, I think we have everyone. And the first thing I said was, let's try to be genuine. Let's try to be vibrant, because I know this is a conversation everyone is watching. And now, Isaac, maybe you can give us a brief of your story. And as you do, I would like you to tell us sex ulijua ukiwa na miaka ngapi, and had anyone talked to you about it?
Sex. So sex is a very sensitive topic to me.
Yeah.
Because coming from a Christian family, like we used to learn about sex a lot, like from the Bible. So, like we were aware about what sex is, but we did not get into the nitty-gritty part of discussing what sex really meant, like for us. So when I was a teenager, you know, because I was learning in a day school, unapata atungeza jikuta kama vijana, alafu we could go like ile hunting, tunatanga hunting. Ikifika jioni, na unajua that is the time that girls mostly go for shopping, tungeenda like just looking for just kuchambua hawa sana warembo, unaangalia ule mrembo.
So hunting ni kuchambua?
Like unaenda nje hunting 6 kwanza hapo hivyo 5. You that is when you know like wametoka shule, unaona? So mnaenda hunting, mnaangalia nani mrembo, nani ameweza. So ilikuwa tu by observing pole, unaona? But after some time unapata unaweza kudevelop your intimate feeling. Yenye unapata kuna msana tu mmoja mwenye umenotice. Na unasema msana like ni pretty, na ningependa kuwa na yeye.
Pretty kwako msichana by at that age ilikuwa nini?
Sana tulikuwa tunaangalia tu looks, but unatapata msana hata hujaongea na yeye. But your friends ama kila mtu mwenye anakuangalia like angeza ona venye una behave na yeye, anajua tu wenyewe kuna kitu hapa hivi inaweza kuendelea. But msana maybe anaweza kuwa hayuko aware. But ushaanza kuonyesha your interest mpaka mkienda nje for example na vijana, like my friends wangeza jua tu mimi na msana kuna venye
mnakatiana
like na mezi ya mate, bado labda samwambia hatujafika hiyo level. So slowly by slowly unapata things just ni pole tu, and before you know it unapatosha na usana ule mtego ni kulala sasa pamoja. Hebu nikuulize swali, on this show we don't hide. Wewe venye ulikatia huo msichana alikuwa na miaka ngapi? Alikuwa age mate, so tulikuwa tumeweza kujiona nikiwa 16. Sasa hiyo kuingia kwa mtego, mliingia kwa mtego kwa nyumba ya nani, yenyu ama yao? Like as at that age unajua kuna bado nyumba, so mko kwenye kila mtu. But obviously mta create chances sama time ya kumeet. Hata kama ni kwa duka, kienda kwa duka, like I could just be there hapo kwa shop na angalia. Then kiona like ametuma duka nenda kumsalimia. Hata kuhagi ilikuwa weird, but pole kwa pole unapata unaweza kuwa comfortable na vitu kama hizo. Na home hakuna bro, hakuna sis unaweza ambia manze, this girl I really like her, so how do I go about it? Home kianza kuongelea mambo ya love ama like mambo ya msichana, like utakuwa nini like criticize sana. Juu like familia yetu like hatuko hivyo open about speaking about our emotions. Hata sometimes unaweza kuwa nikiundergo like something about love, ama hata kama nimekuwa heartbroken, but I will not be very open to speak about them. But to my friends ni rahisi, juu unajua hauko nao most of the time. So you can speak to them about anything. And your friends are your age mates too. So the reasoning is pretty much the same. Wanakuchocha kwanza. Motisha, wanakupatia motisha. Okay, sasa kuna swali, mulikuwa si kulala, hii mapenzi yenu ya teenagers, mulikuwa mnafanyia kwa kina nani, and how many times before she got pregnant? So unapata mostly tungeza kutana like in weird places. Maybe unaweza pata kuna hizi local parties hapo hivyo mtaa. then tungeza ndatu hapo hivyo.
Yes.
Then unajua pale hivyo kuna kampani ya parents, hakuna supervision. Na unajua back in the days it was when ile tuita garidi ilikuwa imetoka. Wagwan nini like unabambika like they were redeem after redeem. So unapata ku dance like dancing style pia ziko zimeweza kubadilika. Like kama unaweza kumbuka back in the days like watu kwa kidance ati kama ile yenyu ile kitambo twisty.
No, ni kutwaka.
Ni kushikana nini. So unaona vitu kama hizo pia za creating emotions.
Yeah.
So slowly by slowly unapata maybe umeweza kufanya vitu kama hizi kukiss, yeah. Na like at first yenyewe utakuwa unaogopa but mwanaume ni kujipatia roho
kazana.
Na pia kuna pia like maboys wako pale hivyo nakwambia kama wewe ni manzi yako so tuprovie ni manzi yako. Unasa hiyo challenge. Ukipoa challenge kama hiyo yenyewe unaweza takapia kujiibisha. Julisha sema yenyewe umazi. Unajua there's something that happens when unapata ukiongea na msichana like akenye nimeongea naye pale hata kama ni 5 seconds nikikuja huku hivi niongea na marafiki zangu like the story turns inakuwa venye like nataka kujichocha venye mimi niko na lugha kali. Unaona sasa hiyo image una create kwa marafiki zako.
So ulikuwa unajichochaje?
It comes to a point like unapata mimi nimeongea na yule dem amenikufia sana vitu kama hizo.
Hata umemkufia. Ni amekukufia.
Asama lazima I'm the prize yeah. I'm the prize. So asama
you're the prize.
Sorry for that. I'm the prize. Unapata asama lazima ujichoche like like najua kwa kunywa. Akwa kunywa nile yenye like naweza ongelesha hii girl with that confidence. Unamwambia hey ni aje? Mnaongea hiyo body content like unajifanya like una dominate your conversation.
Yes.
But unajua tu kwa sababu like kuna watu wanakuona pale hivyo.
Una prove point.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it comes to a point in now you have to walk your talk. Ulikuwa ushaongea huko hivyo back in the days unasema venye like kumuingiza box. So unaweza kuwa challenge like hebu tuonyeshe hebu ndata mkiss basi hata akupatie tu hug. Unaona? So so unapata through those parties za mtaa kama ni birthday ama hata sometimes unapata hata nini like maybe kuna vitu kama hizi matanga for example unapata zina create an avenue yenye mnaweza meet privately.
Okay.
Unaona? So slowly by slowly unapata things escalate. So mkipata venue and one thing kenye mimi najua ni ati like when you are in love ama kuna kitu like unataka sana like you'll find the right place and the right time to do it.
Okay.
Unaona?
Yeah. So ukiwa in love you'll find a way to go about it.
Like
do you think that was love?
Later then when you saw like aliniambia ako pregnant nikajua kumbe hata ikuwa love. At first by the like before like unapata kuna hii feeling yenye unapata unapenda mtu sijui kama ni kupenda mtu ama like ujielewi pia like at that level unapata. So you don't know what love really means ama what a relationship it takes like to build a relationship. So unapata like to me back in the days ingekuanga tu about maybe kuongea na yeye just people seeing us together ni kama unamfloss kwa mtaa. Unaona? But ile siku aliniambia ati yako na ujauzito. Hiyo siku hata sikulala like for 3 days.
Ulikuwa form?
Ilikuwa hapo hivyo so unajua ilikuwa like nilianza kumjua tu kwa 2016. Ilikuwa 2016. So in between the month ndo akaniambia
ako
pregnant.
Na wewe ulikuwa form
2. Yeah.
Na yeye pia alikuwa form
2. Yeah.
So 2 form 2s.
2 form 2s.
One is the pregnanter, the other one is pregnant.
Ni hivyo tu.
Yes.
Like I can't sugarcoat it because hivyo ndo ilikuwa. Yeah. Akakam akaniambia yenyewe sikuwa nataka kuamini.
Na mlikuwa mmelala around how many times?
Ilikuwa around kitu kama 4 times hivi.
And no one thought about protection. No one talked about it.
Deep down unajua like kuna vitu like inafaa ufanye kama protection.
Yes.
Like I can speak about protection. So what mimi nilikuwa nikifeel about protection ati mimi already like I was young during those days unaona. Then end up like naweza pata about like naweza pata hizi like protection wapi? Either kwa chemist ama kwa hospitali, si ndio?
Yes.
So what is my atuseme kama unafanya chemist alafu nimekuja hapo nakwambia like even the guts kukwambia tu atinisaidia hata kama ni CD ama kiss unaona maybe hata kama maybe kuna watu hapo hivyo.
So it's the fear.
It's the fear like unataka kununua kwa duka jiulize unapeleka wapi hizi vitu.
Yes.
Unaona?
Yes.
Ukienda hospitali pia the courage pia kufika hapo na madaktari pia ujue venye utakutreat. So kuna tu hiyo fear yenye uweze enda tu like uweze enda tu chemist ama hospitali uanze kusema like hebu nisaidieni condom. Kwanza the word condom kuisema ama CD ndio maana like unapata siku hizi vijana wengi wanatumia jina CD je kusema condom ama glove kusema hebu saidia hapo condom 2 like inakaa so bad unaona. Alafu pia during those age unajua pia like what was happening haikuanga age appropriate. So napata ndio ilikuwa the main challenge sana.
Was she scared when she came to tell you?
I think ilimchukua time sana ndio kuja niambie. Juu pia kwa najua what was happening like for real. Unaona? But when aliniambia hata mimi sikuwa nataka kuamini. Unaona? Nilikuwa tu nikitaka yenyewe hata kama ni Mungu anisaidie like that cup of suffering itoke kwangu.
A cup of what?
Cup of suffering.
Sasa imekuwa suffering.
From love to suffering. Niliambia tutakuja hapo.
Real quick. Yes.
Unajua at first unapenda mtu but when the real ama tough times zimeanza kukuja, hapo ndio unajua kwamba iko love. Ilikuwa tu nikimlike kama ilikuwa tu infatuation vitu kama hizo. Yeah.
So at what point did the both of you tell your parents and how did they react?
Yeye naye unajua ilibidi like ambie like my parents wake immediately. But for me being the boy nilikuwa nishaambiwa, so I was getting pressure from her. Nikaongea na mama they, like nikaongea na wazazi niwaambie this like mom, this is what is happening. Kuna msana mahali.
Yes.
Nilikuwa nikimpenda but saizi hivi na hivi imefanyika. Unaona, so there was a lot of pressure like nikaambia wazazi wangu, but yeye unajua kuna venye ngeza hide. Juu eventually ingeonekana.
Yeah.
Like ile kazi tulifanya in darkness ingeonekana saa dharani, kila mtu aonetu wenyewe kuna venye kubaya.
Unayofanya kwa darkness
kwa
itakuja kwa mwangaza.
Yeah, kwa mwangaza.
Yes.
So yeah, like she had to talk like to her mom about it very early.
Yeah.
But for me bado nilikuwa nikigadili courage. My mama alikuwa akijuanga mimi ni ile innocent boy.
Yes.
Jipia venye amenireza na Christian background.
Yeah.
So napata kitu kama hiyo angeweza taka kujua. So ili nitake a lot of pressure pia from them. Ndio like nikuje niambie wazazi wangu. Jodi ilifika point wana threaten kukuja kwetu. Unaona, nasema tutakuja basi tumwambie ama tuongee naye kama utaki kumwambia. So like ningesema tu atinda like ndamwambia ama nishamwambia, hata sometimes ningedanganya. But bado sikuwa nimefanya hivyo.
Yeah.
So ile siku niliambia mom pia reaction yake ilikuwa weird but eventually it all joined. Kuna vitu zenye inevitable. Yeah.
Okay, so you guys, you came to a conclusion mtalea mtoto.
Yeah.
So
because the girl was still young, ilibidi tu.
But she had now to drop out of school for some time.
Yeah.
Did she go back to school?
Later, after a year hivi ndo akaenda shule, but jumamake ilibidi ambeleke ushago, at least huko hivyo ndo angeza kukopa pole pole akili ya mtoto na yukuza.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for you, how often did you check up on her?
So unajua back in the days simu haziko hivyo frequent, but ungeza communicate hata kama ni thrice or like twice a week. Yeah.
Okay, we'll get back to how you dealt with this whole and the baby coming, but before we do, you can pass the mic over to Susan first. So Susan, you had your baby when you were 16. The conception was at 16. Yeah. You had your baby when you were 17. So just like Isaac, if you could briefly take us through your story so that we can now bring in Stella to this conversation.
Okay, yeah. So for me, I was raised by my mom and dad. Niki was still young, up to the age of when I was like in class 5. But katikati hapo, my mom and dad they were not really like in good terms.
Yeah.
My dad would beat my mom kila siku. So I grew up knowing that. At that time we were living in Rescos. Then we moved to Ngong. And then when nilifika class 5, my mom and dad separated. So we had to start another new life.
Yeah.
Pale kwa ghetto. So we have a slum in Ngong called Mathare. Tukaka hapo class 5, did my class 8, then went to high school.
Yeah.
So I'm going to high school still, it's not easy. Because you see, you're with your single mom. We have our small sister. Nimeenda high school. Pia ni challenge, because my mom has a kiosk. Trying to raise school fees is a challenge, but I was a bright student. So niko shule ninasoma, but kila weekend unaona ile list ya watu wa kwenda home. Jina yangu ingekosekana hapo, I think there was an issue. Ni kama wali miss out jina yangu. So I grew up with that. But in me, I never thought that I would get pregnant in between. Because I was telling myself I don't want to live ni struggle kama venye madhe amenilea. Alafu naona tuko kwa ghetto. I don't want to be like other girls. So mi hata stories za kukatiwa, like nilikuwa nakatiwa and I try to avoid. Actually when I was joining high school sikuwa navaa trouser. cause nilikuwa naona nikivaa trouser, hey, the boys will see my hips, watanikatia, they'll run after me, and I didn't want that. But so when I was in high school, kuna kale ka pressure. You know, you have friends. And kila mbogi inakuanga na story yake.
Okay.
And for me in school, uko Ngong, you know, we live with the Maasais.
Yes.
So kulikuwa na like 2 groups. So kulikuwa na group ya wenye wametoka Umasaini au wanasikizana, alafu sasa kuna watu wa Tao sasa. So watu wa Tao sasa ni majanjez.
Yes.
And hapo the conversation ni kila mtu angeongea story ya boyfriend yake.
Yeah.
Chali yangu amefanya hii, and then I am there, Susan, hauna chali, like am I really okay?
So you thought you not having a boyfriend was abnormal?
Yes.
The normal was you have to have
I have to have a boyfriend and at least have a story to tell my friends in school, at home, you know, that ka pressure. So when I went kwa my grandmother's place,
yes,
who used to live in Race Course, I met this guy, and it was so funny how we met. So nilikuwa kwa my aunt, we had closed school. At that time I was in form 3. That was in 2015. So mimi nimeenda kusota maji kwa my aunt kwa kanjia, sasa nimebeba kwa mgongo. And then this guy on the opposite side kulikuwa na place inauzwa mafuta, so he used to sell hapo mafuta.
Yeah.
So time ayuko kwa shop ako hii side ingine karibu na gate.
Yes.
Amekaa tu hapo. So mimi na mtungi yangu kwa mgongo ninapita naenda kwa my aunt, and then this guy ako after me, amenisimamisha. Hi.
Yes.
I am so and so, can I talk to you? I felt I was on top of the world. You know that is romantic. Who guy anaweza kusimamisha, wants to talk to you, hata ako willing kunibebea mtungi ya maji. I am like, no, I am okay. So he told me, can we exchange numbers? I was like, yeah, it's okay. So to exchange contacts, but I didn't have a phone, though I had my line. So nikienda kwa my aunt, natoa simu yake, natumia line yangu. So I went back home, went to school. So in 2016, venye nilikam, and ilikuwa time ya midterm.
Yeah.
Na ilikuwa time ya Valentine's.
Okay.
And you have a boyfriend.
Yes.
A boyfriend whom we've been talking, but we met that once, and I think we also met when I went to my grandmother's place, just talked and then went back.
Yes.
So hii time nimekuja na alikuwa anafunga shop. So kanambia situfike hivi mtaa uone home. Mimi sinajua naenda tu kuona home. So I was like, no, I can't go because niko kwa shosh and I was with my sister and she was crying for me. So lazima ningetafuta lugha ya kusema sitakuwa.
Yes.
So I had to use lies. I nilihave kudanganya my grandmother. Mimi nikaenda kuona mtaa. And there's no way utafika kwa guy and just live like that. So nilifika, he was like, this is my house.
How old is this guy?
At that time he was around 24.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
24, 25 hapo. Mimi nimefika mtaa, nimemhug, it goes to a kiss, and then it goes to, can we have sex? And I'm like, no, I am not prepared for this. It's like, kidogo tu, hata sitaingiza.
Okay.
You see, so mimi nikaambiwa
so nile ya juu tu.
Nile tu ya juu na sitaingiza na sitamwaga. So mimi hata sijui nini. So I was like, hey, this guy is a a gentleman. Hata mwaga, so I won't get pregnant.
Had someone talked to you about sex, like asipomwaga uta get pregnant, ya juu hauta get pregnant, a kiss cannot make you pregnant, vitu kama hizo?
Hizo we used to be told in school.
Okay.
There was that, but you see, sikuwa nimechukulia na ile uzito, and also how it was being portrayed.
Yeah.
I wanted to go and test whatever these people are telling us. Wacha niende nijione mimi mwenyewe what it is.
Wow.
So akaguzisha tu na hakumwaga. That's what I went telling myself. So on going back home, I knew I didn't have sex.
Yes.
And I knew I was not broken my virginity.
Okay.
But I went back to school. First month, no periods. Second month, no period. So I told myself, juu shule yetu iko karibu na Ngong Hills, and maybe because of the weather, ndio imeni affect, periods zangu zimeskip.
Nikuulize, mkifanya ile ilichukua like how long?
It didn't take long.
Minutes, seconds?
It didn't take more than 30 minutes.
Oh, okay.
I slept at his place, but the act yenyewe, it didn't take time. Because niliambiwa hata ingiza, we will now make time for that. Yeah. So, second month, no periods. Third month, na feel movement kwa tumbo. I'm like, what is happening with me? So deep inside me, I was telling myself, kuisha mimi, this is the first time I have met with this guy. Amesema hata mwaga.
Was this the first time you were having sex too?
Yes.
You got pregnant the first time you had sex?
Yes. And mimi, I knew that was not sex. That was just kuguzisha. Actually, because I used to hear with people that when you have sex for the first time, you feel pain, you bleed. Mimi sija bleed, sija feel pain. So bado
tuko sawa. Hajaingia huko ndani. Okay.
So when now it hit me that anyway I might be pregnant, and niko shule, that time niko form 4. I am expecting to sit for my examination. My mom nimemwacha pale hivyo kwa ghetto. She's also struggling. So I started asking myself, what do I do with my life? So I called this guy venye tulienda midterm, second term. I told him, hi, ni kama niko na ball. I think he knew. You guys know.
Isaac, you guys know?
You guys know.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
I thought maybe he knew because venye nilimwambia, my reaction was I was expecting him aniambie hiyo ball si yangu venye tu madem huruma.
Yes.
But now this was different. He told me, if you love me, usitoe your ball.
Wow.
Iweke. Keep it if you truly love me. Sasa, you see, now there I was like, hey, and now sasa huyu, I think now this is the husband I have been looking for.
Husband from heaven.
Husband from heaven.
Yes.
Which guy tells you to keep a child na anakubali? So he was like, now hata unafaa ukam.
Yeah.
So I couldn't go cause ni midterm na nimemcall like on a Sunday, Monday nafaa kwenda shule. But I told him, nikiwa shule nitatafuta simu, we will be communicating. So nimeenda shule. I didn't tell anyone. At that time it was like 3 months. No friend knew. My mom didn't know.
Yeah.
He was the only person who knew about it. So ile time tulifunga kukuja home, I knew this is the time I had to say it. But I didn't know how to say it. Cause me, my mom, alikuanga ameniambia, wewe nikaisikia uko na mimba, utarudi nayo kule umetoka. And that is what most people are told. Cause hakuna by the way mzazi aneza taka hivyo after amekulea with all that struggle. So I went to my aunt's place in Banana. And funny thing, what happened that day, nikienda kwa my aunt, nika faint kwa barabara. And me, I didn't know what it was. Cause nimetoka shule, nimekuja nimefua, so nimeenda kwa my mom kumpatia funguo niende. Na nikafika na courage nikamwambia, by the mom nimefaint kwa barabara. But for me it didn't hit me that these are the signs. So when I went to my aunt's place, I used to tell her, alikuwa na hoteli. Namwambia, auntie, tukifunga, tukienda home, unikumbushe nikwambie kitu. Tukifunga, I try all means to avoid your story. I did like that for like a whole week.
So you felt more comfortable going to your aunt and not your mom?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not that I couldn't tell my mom, but I didn't have that courage.
Were you ashamed?
Yes.
Were you scared?
I was very scared. But nilikuwa tu nimejimotivate, nimejiambia, my mama akikubali fine. Akikataa, si mimi namaliza shule. I'll finish, nende ni hustle kama wase wengine. So I think at your time my aunt had noticed, cause kuna top nilikuwa navaa, nilikuwa nashinda nayo. Nikiivaa leo ninaifua, kesho imekauka ninaivaa.
Ilikuwa kubwa kidogo.
No, it was just flat ndani, alafu ile inakuanga na like a net. Juu unaona hiyo
inaficha kidogo. Yes.
So ni kama alikuwa ameshangaa, huyu ni nini anashindanga na hiyo.
Yeah.
So ile time nilimwambia, it was like nikaa nilikuwa nime notice, but mimi nilisema sitakuuliza, nilikuwa na ngoja uniambie. So you do this first thing, usifikirie kutoa your ball.
Yeah.
But me in my mind nikiwa shule, those were some of the thoughts I had. Should I abort? Tena nafikiria nikiabort alafu nikufe.
Yeah.
You know, those kind of fear.
Yes.
And then I'm like, nikiabort at least nitaishi poa, nitaweza kwenda uni after high school. So I told my aunt, you call my mom, jua venye utamwambia. Because she's your sister, wewe utamwelewa vizuri more than myself. So she told my mom.
Yeah.
And I think it was not easy kwa conversation, but now she told me we have agreed with her, wewe rudi home. So on going back home, the first thing my mom told me ni umeamua tu kuniaibisha. But ni sawa, mtoto si kidonda. Mtoto atagrow, utamaliza shule, uishi maisha kama watu wengine. So I had to go for clinic, then went to school. So nimeenda shule na my mom, she's telling the principal, Susan akona mimba, let her stay in school.
Yeah.
Na shule saizo I was that active student, alafu nimepata mimba. How now? But I had to cope with it. It was not really easy. Mko na watu shule, they're talking about you, but I just had to show that I was strong.
Yeah.
So nilikeep ball, nikafanya exams, but now on the second last day of the exams, it was like on a Wednesday, I have a theory paper on Thursday, a chemistry practical on Friday, and then a physics paper
on Monday.
The other week. Then I am done. So he time on a Wednesday with my friend, tulikuwa tu tumekaa hivi tukiongea, and then there was a male teacher hapa kando. My waters broke.
Oh.
So you can imagine all that time I have been in school, no one has even been talking to me about this. And me I knew nitamaliza exams niende home nipate mtoi. So reality has hit. I need to deliver and sit for my exam the other day. It was not easy. So I had to be rushed in hospital. Maji ime break but sina labor pain. So I had to be induced. And you see that time I was still small. It was not easy, but I thank God I was able to deliver my baby. Na asubuhi hata sikulala, ati venye watu unapata watoto unalala, I didn't do that. Asubuhi nikamkia. So I had to sit for another 2 good hours just from giving birth, umeshonwa, all that pain. I had to do my exams.
Wow.
Good thing my mom was very supportive. Akakuja kakaa na mtoto. The following day nikaenda shule. So you see, we don't have pesa ati nitaitiwa kabe nipeleke shule.
Whoa.
I had to take a motorbike.
Whoa.
To school. I had to stand for 2 hours with the chemicals to do the practicals. But sasa, sini mimi nimejirusha kwa hiyo noma.
Were students talking?
They were talking. But sasa you see, it hits me nikirudi kwa dorm. I feel so bad. I cry about it, but nikitoka hapo nje, I need to show how strong I am. Because unajua kuna venye mtu akipita hapa na ball, tutajua tu wenye huyo mtu atajua tu tumemuongelea. So that is what I used to feel kwa teachers, kwa students, but nili have to kukaa ngumu.
And the guy?
And the guy this time, we will talk, but nile anakuzungusha tu hivi. Niko shule nampigia namwambia I need at least nitumie do niweze kubai kitu, ananiambia nitakutumia. Hivyo mpaka nikadeliver. So time ya kudeliver, I texted him, niko hosi napata mtoi. He was like, all the best. Namtext namwambia nimepata mtoi dem, tunafaa tumnema aje, because I didn't want like to make decisions.
Yes. Alone
na unaona amekubali mtoi. He didn't respond.
Oh.
So I had to carry all that burden by myself. Yeah, good thing I delivered. So now I have to come back home, meet sasa watu wa mtaa. What do they have to say? Because nimekuwa na ball shule. So nimekuja na mtoto nyumbani. Na saa hizo like the whole ghetto news isha spread, Susan amefanya mtihani akiwa Hosi, amepata mtoto akiwa Hosi. Mapolisi wamemzunguka huko, you know those kind of
La mujer.
Yeah, so it was also not easy, but I had the support from my mom.
It's always your mom, right?
Yes.
Wow. So do you guys speak with the dad?
No. We were speaking the first 2 years. So nikapata mtoi. Then I registered again to sit for my exams because I didn't perform well.
Yeah.
So my former principal alinipigia kaniambia, Susan, hata kama umepata mtoto, I still believe in you. Maybe you should give this a second chance.
Wow.
So, but me deep inside me I was asking myself, mama haoni mimi nishakuwa mama, achane tu na mimi, you know? But I had to go back to school. Na my mom alikuwa ameniambia, ukipata mtoto after school, whatever you choose to do, it's up to you. So venye nilimwambia narudi shule, she was like, it's fine. So I will leave her with my daughter kwa kibanda, ile kreti ya ndizi, anatandika vizuri, mtoto anakaa hapo. I go to school, ninasoma, narudi nyumbani. But so unaona hata nikiwa shule, though sikuwa naingia class, but I couldn't focus cause unaenda kusoma, mtoto una feel nini imejaa, matiti imejaa, you need to breastfeed. I come back home, but I always thank God because this 1 year mind yangu ilikuwa ina focus kwa exams. So I was not thinking of getting married. You see all that?
Yes.
So mtoi alikuwa amegrow. So when venye nilifanya mtihani nikapata D+. Na ile time nyingine nilikuwa nimepata D and I was like, hata nimeperform, so I should go to college. At least do a certificate. Niende hivyo niki-upgrade.
Wow.
But so I went to college and because my passion has always been for the community, nikasema let me do community development because at least with that I'll be able to approach an organization, a children's home and serve. But katikati, because of school fees, I had to drop. So I felt like my whole life enyewe, mimi I am just destined to get married, nile tu mtoi, niishi tu life kama watu wengine. So I stayed at home, nika hustle. But in 2019, I told myself, despite all this, I have gone through all this, I have been broken, I have felt like I am at the end of it. Because you see, you also struggle, unatry kulea mtoi, hauyuko job, hauna certificate extra, the dad is not supportive, my mama ako pale na kibanda, I can't really do a lot, and inakaa ni kama ni burden mob ninampatia. So I decided, why not start using my story and my experience to reach out to other young moms, such that, yes, sisi wote tumego through this, but there is still hope. That me enyewe na kufeel, I might not have gone through the same thing as you, but
and a lot of hope.
We are in this together. So I decided, because now I don't have papers, I can't approach an organization. I am going to start something of my own. With my experience, with no papers or anything. And that's how I started bringing girls together.
Wow.
Nikaona, because for me, I got pregnant because of that peer pressure and the environment. And we have girls wenye wanapata ball juu ya lack of a sanitary towel. What can I do? Yes, siko job, sijasoma, I don't have people who support me, but the little that I can get, what difference can I make?
Good.
So I decided to use my story and just reach out to people. The baby daddy, we started talking, alikuwa anakuja home, but ikafika mahali, kumbe this guy alikuwa amepatia dem mwingine ball.
On to the next one.
Yes. So me, I used to see him anaeka profile picture ya mtoto, a boy.
Wow.
Namuuliza, who's this boy? Na mnafanana. Ananiambia, huyu mtoi ni wa family member. I'm like, huyu ni family member too. That time I was still young and stupid.
Had he ever put a profile picture of your daughter?
He would put when sasa I complain about this.
Ana switch sasa.
Ana switch. Wangu anaekwa for like 2 days, mwingine anakaa for a whole month.
Ratio is 2:30.
And you see, I am asking myself, mbona uweke mtoi wa family member na uko na wako? Because that is what I used to tell myself. So time fulani mimi nikamwambia, by the way, you venye naona tukipelekana, it's like we are not going well. So akaniambia, nikamwambia, you just tell me the truth. Akaniambia, yeah, it's okay, yeah, niko na mtoto na huyu ndio mama yake. Nikamwambia, show me the photo of the mother. Akanionyesha picha. So kurudi pale kwa Facebook, alikuwa amepost picha ya huyu mtoto. And then you see a comment of someone commenting, you get curious to see who this person is. Kuingia kwa profile, you see this is the mother and this is the child. Na wewe ulionyeshwa mama mwingine na mtoto mwingine. So I'm asking him, was like, yeah, it's true, shajua, niko na watoto wengine wawili, so I've never even known if they are two, if huyu mtoto, huyu ndio mama yake, alafu ule mama nilionyeshwa kuna mtoto mwingine. And this is the one that I love. I was like, well, it's okay, if this is the one that you love, Mimi, I'll push on with my life. And that was it.
Wow.
Nika have to just accept that fact and know how I am going to raise my child and also build myself. Though it's not easy, but
tunajaribu. Wow, commend you for being so brave. Of course, both you and Isaac. And now I want us to pass the mic to Mr. Edward. When you were introducing yourself, you said, unlike other people, you were actually forced to do it to secure a generation. So also if you could just maybe briefly tell us your story so that now we can move on.
The lady was not my choice, you know. Aliletwa tu na aunti yangu, kasema utaoa huyu, you see. By that time sio ile unamtongoza mnaanza kurelate alafu mnazoea na mnaishi. So nilipoletewa, I accepted because of the advice I was given by my parents. Tukakuja Nairobi, tukakaa. Just the following year, kapata ball, tukapata our first child. Tukaendelea hivyo, but it was not easy because unajua kitu ambao haujaamua kwa roho yako, unaona tu ni kama ni forced marriage. So haikuwa rahisi sana kwangu. But later on nikakuja nikazoea, tukaishi tu hivyo na tukaendelea. Now vile hawa vijana wamezungumza, it is true. They get this early pregnancy because during the adolescence. Me as I'm a community health volunteer, and we are having a program for mentorship. We are mentoring girls, young girls, and we are starting with pre-adolescents because that is the foundation where these children should have that family value. And we don't just mentor the girls alone. We call the mothers or the caregivers. They sit together and share their experiences. We talk about sexuality. And you realize that even the young ones at 9 years, they are engaged in sex.
And they already know about it.
Yes, these young ones, they share with their mothers how they engage. During break time, wakati wameenda pale kwa loo, kwa toilets, unakuta wanaenda wanaangaliana, wanaguzana, wanaanza kushikana, and eventually they have sex. So it is true that we need to start a bit early. The intervention should start early at pre-adolescence, so that we can reduce this early pregnancies.
Stella, you are a mom of teenagers, right? And you are a young mom. You if we are allowed to, you are how old?
35.
You are 35 and you're already a mom of 2 teenagers. So the first question I really want to ask, even before we go any further, have you taught them about sex? And what are the questions they are asking you?
When it comes to my kids, being the only parent, as in a single mom, we talk about anything and everything. Yeah, we have no secrets. We share so much with my kids. We are that free. So I've talked to them. They know everything about sex. If it's my daughter, she knows about if you do this, you'll get pregnant, about menses, everything. We talk about everything.
If have you talked to them about protection and abstaining? Like for you as a parent right now, you already have Isaac. He is 16. He's already having sex. Susan here is 16. She's already having sex. Who is talking to them even about condoms? Or who is even telling them, okay, if you first, would you allow them to have sex at that age?
No, I can't allow them, because I usually tell them, okay, sex is good when you are married. You see, once you finish school, you're above 18, you have your job, that's fine. But when you are still in school, you are under me. You see, so issues with sex, mambo ya sex, ati you find out you are having a relationship, no, for now. And about things like condoms, I've talked to them about it. By the way, they know. My girl is turning 11, and if you ask
She's
her,
turning 11.
if you ask her what is a condom, she'll tell you. I've taught them, because, okay, to me, I wouldn't want water. Okay, I wasn't aware. Like me, hata kama nilikuwa nimepitisha 18, when I got pregnant, I was still like, how mtoto atakaaje kwa tumbo? Umeshika? Yani, how ati mtoto na atoke na miguu na mikono? So I had so many questions. Mtoto atapitia wapi? You see, despite umefunzwa shule, but I was still ile that naive. I didn't know.
Do you think what they are teaching in schools is maybe a bit complicated? Why did you not understand what they were teaching you in school?
Okay, in school, it's a bit complicated and they are not that open. You see, they are not that open.
How are we supposed to have this conversation? Because again, you are a mom of an 11-year-old. So assuming I'm your daughter and I come to you, which terms are you using to teach me about sex and early pregnancy?
Okay, mimi for once, sita kuficha. Like me, I was told, Stella, if you stand with a guy, you'll get pregnant. That's what my mom used to tell me. You see, me, I was like, Mom, I'm the last born, nataka mtoto mwingine. Mbona sina brother, mbona sina sister. So my mom used to tell me, nitanunua mtoto supermarket, sina pesa. Nikipata pesa, nitanunua mtoto supermarket, then utapata brother or sister. Umeshika? So, mimi my daughter namwambianga point blank, if you do this and this and this, you'll get pregnant.
Able to ambie point blank, because there are people who are watching and I want them to get it as it is. What's the point blank in this conversation?
Okay, point blank is, if you involve yourself, if you engage yourself in sexual acts now, that you know that now you're growing, like now my daughter, she has already started her periods.
Yes.
Yeah, which is, by the way, I'm happy.
Yeah.
When she told me that, I was like, wow, God. Yani, alikuwa kwa shosho yake, alikuwa kwa my mom.
Yeah.
So, akani WhatsApp na simu ya my mom.
Wow.
Akaniambia, Mom, we need to talk.
Wow.
So, I was like, niambie mama, ati si kitu yenye naweza kuambia kwa simu. Can you come over? Nikamwambia, Mom, umeenda tu uko just only 3 days. So, ni emergency gani? Akaniambia, Mom, unakumbuka ile story yenye tulikuwa tunaongea? So, I was like, story? Nikamwambia, we talk about so many things. So, ni gani? Akaniambia, Mom, unakumbuka ukinivalisha pads? By the way, nilifikaga to an extent, hakuwa ameanza. But, so, ndio akue aware. By the way, I did that years back. Sahi ako class 6. Umeshika? So, nilimfanya avae pad for a whole week. Kama wamefunga shule, namwambia now, go and change. Anaenda ana change, and I wrap. I taught her how to wrap it.
Wow.
And I wrap, and I used to tell her, your brother should not know. Umeshika? So at first, she was so uncomfortable, because hata kukaa chini,
why should
she
the
was
brother
like,
not know that the sister is...
Okay, you know, at that time, kwanza, you know, I'm still training her.
Okay.
Umeshika? So atakuwa ni zile za, sasa brathangu umeshika? Atanionaje? Umeshika? So at first ata feel ashamed. Good. So it's a process kwanza before you brother yake ajue pia dadangu amegrow nini. Umeshika? So and at that moment ni kumfunza kwanza kumtrain. So I trained her, akaiva for a whole week, though sometimes alikuwa naitoa. I'm like, mbona ujava? Hey mom, hiyo kitu ni so uncomfortable. I'm like, you're going to wear it my friend. Na anaiva. So akazoea. So hata kwa shosh nikamuuliza, okay now cause kwa saa hii it's late, I can't come over, but I'll come for you kesho. Nikamwambia, so what have you done? Akaniambia, mom, hata shosho hajajua nimevaa. You know, mi by then nilikuwa nampakia. Since class 5 always angekosa 2 kwa bag. So nilikuwa namwambia, in case uone tu hivi, mom, wear this. Sawa? Ananiambia yes. So that day hata my mom didn't know. So akavaa. So kuvaa was like, hey God. Yani mpaka I even shared with a friend, nikamwambia, hey, I tell you now I'm old. You see, it was yani kuna kale kafuraha kengine yani you feel mtoi wako ameanza. So you are like, hey, so hiyo to boobs tumeshaanza kutokea cause she was like this, ameanza kuinama. You see? So I'm like, mom, you should be proud of yourself. Unaona? Ufai kufilati aibu watu unaanza kuvaa masweta nini. You look good by the way. You look good kabisa hivyo venye uko. So
can we just talk about you telling your kid how good they look before they hear it from a man? Because she was going to hear it from a man, and that makes her feel special rather than when her own mom. So when if parents could constantly give affirmations to their kids, mommy, you look good, my son, you're handsome, you know, because so that when they hear it from another person, it's just a bonus. This is what they are used to, you know. I really love that.
Thank you. So, as for my son, there was a time sasa adolescent imeanza. Sasa pimples, he had big kabisa. So my son was low. Alikuwa tu chini. Then I was like, Dad, what is happening to you? Then he was like, Mom, watu wananicheka shule. Why? Ati cause ya pimples, wananiambia ni adole nini. So already nilikuwa nimeshamprepare such things. Umeshika hair kwa armpits, all that, pubic, all that. So they were aware. So nikamwambia, Dad, can you remember what we talked about this and this and this? By the way, we have even notes. We write them down. So I'm like, he told me yes. Nikamwambia, so don't allow anyone to make you feel less. You see? You're good, you're handsome. Nikamwambia, Dad, by the way, I think you know there's no one who is handsome like you. By the way, he knows that. Anajua enyewe hakuna mtu handsome kama yeye. You see, you have to self-esteem yake, yani umboost. Umeshika? So that as he feel like, hey, maybe labda my dad angekuwa, maybe angeniambia hivi. You see?
Your son is
14 years old.
Has he started telling you he's noticing to girls?
Okay, for my son, I can say I was telling Isaac a story. So my son, kuna time aliandikiwa barua na mtoto wa klasi yake msichana. So my son really cried. He cried mpaka akawa mgonjwa. Akaambia teacher he's sick. Umeshika? So mi teacher kanipigia akaniambia mtoto ni mgonjwa, uko nyumbani? Nikamwambia siko nyumbani. Akaniambia so namtuma nyumbani. Nikamwambia it's okay, I'm going back home. Ni sawa akuje. So mi kwenda home, my son hugged me and he cried. Nikamwekelea kwa kifua, nikamwambia just cry, akalia. So I was like, are you done? Hey, so now tell mommy what is wrong. Akaniambia, mom, ebu imagine msichana mwingine pote ameniandikia barua ati ananiambia ananipenda. Mom, kweli huo mtoto amenichukuaje? Mom, mimi nataka kusoma. Mom, si unajua tu. So I was like, hey, cool down, this is normal. You see? Hiyo ni kawaida. So aki ilimwe down and ilifika to an extent mpaka mtoto wangu aliniambia, mom, mimi sisomi hiyo class tena. If it's going back to that class with that girl, no. Ilibidi apelekwe another class now. Because of that girl, tukaitwa mpaka staff room. Mama ya huo mtoto akaitwa. You see, tukaketishwa chini. So we talk to them as parents. Tukwambia it's normal. I know how you feel. You see, I understand, but this is not the right time ya kukatia kijana wangu. You see, hata it's not the right time ya wewe. Because if my son akikupatia mimba, like surely I hustle, it's true. Mimi mwenyewe sahi nangengana. So sahi kijana wangu akikupatia mimba, where will I take you, my friend? Mi labda ukae tu hapo tu.
Tungangane
for real, tungangane wote. Ukitoka kuhustle pia mimi na hustle. You see, cause sina na akona yeah. You see, so so it's a challenge sometimes, but I usually thank God. Unasikianga ukiwa kama mzazi, especially a single mother, you should be a role model to your child, because anakuangalia whatever you do ndio kenye huo mtoto atakuja afanye. Yeah, so I think that has helped me a lot tangu wakiwa wadogo, and I really thank God for that.
Wow, I love the fact that we are talking to them early, because I know there are a lot of people watching and they have not even taught their own daughters how to wear pads. They are not even teaching their boys what to do ukipata hizo pimples. So for me, I think when they go now to get information from someone else, now that's where Susan ataambiwa sitamwaga, utapata mimba kamoja tu, you get such things. So I really must commend you. And now moving to this wonderful Mrs. Mbuki, why are we having this conversation?
Most parents that we have, they spend so much time in their workplaces. They don't even teach their kids, and then they expect the teachers as well to be able to teach them. But the reality is the teachers are overwhelmed. You know, they have, there are courses they're supposed to teach, and if you look at our education system, we don't have even enough teachers. So you find that everyone is, like you're expecting the teacher to come in place. And of course now with the COVID-19 pandemic, it has even exposed the adolescent even further. You find that even I remember there was a time even parents were actually on Twitter, they were saying, hey, kids need to go back to school. I mean, it's too much when the kids are at home. But that's the reality. Parents are not there. And when you talk about that gap of parents not being present for their kids, you find that they don't have any information. Like, for example, the way Susan was talking about, she didn't know about what sex really is. And also Stella talked about when she was in school, the sex education wasn't really sex education. It's actually life skills. And that's why there's a whole conversation about comprehensive sexuality education, which is actually a big discussion in which you'll find that the faith-based organizations, or churches rather, they still are fighting because they're saying you're teaching kids sex. But they need to understand, they interact. You've had my colleague here talking about 9 years. Wanaenda shule, wanaangaliana, wanajaribu. But the reality is, if you look at statistics, 10 to 14 years, it's actually increasing over the years. If you look at the statistics of 2019 and 2020, they've actually gone up for 10 to 14. And of course, 15 to 19 is even higher. So it's really to say that parents need to actually teach their kids wakiwa wadogo. When a kid is being brought up, unaonaga the kid the girl anapewa pink dressing, pink whatever, but the boy is given blue stuff. But really is to say that is where the conversation starts. Unaanza kufunza mtoto wako body anatomy. What your body entails, how to negotiate. Uyo mtoto ameenda kwa lu akiwa 9 years old. That girl is supposed to be taught, you're supposed to say no. Mtu afai kukuinua nguo. That's your private part, protect it and all that.
Nasi kugusa guse. Yeah. And also young ladies need to be told, stop writing letters to these boys. Because we are not just going to blame the young boys here. If our young girls are writing letters to our young men, we have a problem.
And even when you're talking about teenage pregnancy, by the way, we need to also teach men about the issues. I like when she talked about teaching the girl about menstrual hygiene. But imagine, even that man needs to understand, so that man does not stigmatize another girl. It's true that sometimes the girls soil their dressing and everything, and of course they will talk about it, but mtu mwenye amenda, they have been taken through the education, they'll be like, how can I support? Because they understand it's part of life. It's something that that girl, it's normal for that girl to go through that. And it's that gap that we have, that everyone is, hufai kuinteract. I can only interact walikuwa nasema ati they were talking about haufai kuinteract na huyo mwenzako because ukisimama na yeye utapata pregnant ama anything. It's really to say that even relationships, when you're as a parent, you need to teach your girl, your boy about relationships.
Yes.
Because sex education is not just sex itself, it's about also how do you relate with the other gender. So it's really a big gap. Even we are a lot of course, as practitioners, as stakeholders, we are still engaging different partners to see how we can have comprehensive sex education in school. Because the current one we have is life skills, and that is not helping our girls.
But
sorry, go on. And really is to say that everyone in the community needs to be involved. Kitambo, we used to have a kid is being raised by the village. And in that way, there's sort of monitoring and evaluation and just seeing how everyone is. He talked about the parties. Who is holding the parties? Is it in a family setup?
Good.
Is it that you don't care about the kids of the others?
Yes.
Umewa host, you're only caring about your kids.
Yes.
How about the other ones when you're nakuja parties kwako? You know, it takes a village to raise someone. So it's really to say that everyone needs to be involved. Wewe ni makanga hapo, you've seen a lot of cases about boda. You've seen a lot of transactional sex. Kama huyo mtoto ameenda shuleni, when they can't access the school because maybe the school is so far, the boda takes advantage. They say like, haya mimi nitakupeleka nyumbani lakini utanipea. That boda person feel responsible. You are contributing to humanity.
Yes.
That girl cannot get home early enough. Mpe ride. Lakini don't ask for anything in return. Because it takes a village to raise someone.
It does.
And when you break that girl's life, I mean, you're continuing the poverty cycle. And we are saying Kenya needs to get out of developing countries. We are all contributing to, and we actually lose 17% of our GDP to teenage pregnancy because I contribute my tax. That tax goes to free education. Alafu mtoto anatoka shuleni. We are all suffering in the whole process of teenage pregnancy. So we must be able to feel like everyone is contributing and it's not a problem of the girl, and really to say that everything that we are also teaching the girl, let's involve the boys as well. And even while we are doing this campaign, the Sauti Sasa campaign, we are saying that every man also must. We try to get sanitary towels, and then we think about, okay, how do we engage also the men? So we bring boxers for the men because we need to have conversations with them.
That's my point. And earlier on, allow me to say this. I visited a school. We were donating sanitary towels, and I even told my supporters this was the most embarrassing moment for me because us, we are packed in a kakona giving sanitary towels, and then the two boys are looking at us like, sisi tumeletewa nini.
Exactly.
And for me that was a moment of truth. It was the realization that even as we as a community, we are empowering these young girls and taking sanitary towels. Let's also have something for the boys. So when you are talking to the girls this side, another person is talking to the boys this side, and they don't feel left out. So I really like that.
Yeah. And then the other big thing we have as a country, I don't know if it's culture. We have a culture of concealing everything.
Yes. Chini ya maji.
Susan talked about ati umeamua kuniaibisha. Because we don't want to talk about this conversation. Imagine if Susan's mom talked about contraceptives. I'm just coming from Bungoma. Bungoma, you cannot even talk about condoms. Unachiki venye unasema you were giving out sanitary towels. As we were told, don't showcase condoms. Wacha ule mwenye anataka condom akujie. Like the reality is, these adolescents are engaging in sex from the age of 9. How do you ensure that girl, that adolescent, actually understand what contraceptives there are? There are over 18 contraceptives, really. It's not just the implants or, the cups, whatever. There are so many other. In fact, we also part of the Sauti Sasa, we are actually distributing the menstrual cycles. So that girl understands, these are my fertility days, these are in my infertility days. Ndio hata kijana akimwambia ninauguza tu, ama nina
where guza tu you are safe on my safe days.
Niambie nidanganye when I'm in my safe days. But the reality is the girls don't understand their menstrual cycles. The sex education in school doesn't teach them some of the nitty-gritties of the menstrual cycle. So we are saying that we need to make sure that we are having proper conversations, proper engagement and hata tukua even just calling out the religious institutions. These girls wanakujanga Sunday school and all that. Can we make sure that even that Sunday school itself is very comprehensive?
Tell it as it is.
Exactly.
It's right here. They are 9, they are 10. Even if you don't tell them in Sunday school, Monday wanaguzana kwa choo huko nyuma. So tell it as it is, you know.
Yeah, so that I think that there's a gap, and you remember concealing, it's a big problem. Let's talk about it. Let's share with our adolescents that tuambie this is the scenario. By the way, this is now how you protect yourself. Make a choice. And I like what Stella is engaging with the adolescent that she has in the house, so that even when that girl goes or that boy who is being written a letter, they actually understand what this means. And by the way, teenage pregnancy, you see, like for example Susan, what maybe she might not know is that even the guy who gave him that pregnancy, it keeps bothering him, because at some point as a man, just the way a man is created, he's supposed to provide. Anajua vizuri he has a kid somewhere, but he's not providing. It will come at some point itamsumbua. In fact, in West Pokot, we had a case where a boy gave pregnancy or got pregnant. Sometimes we call it they're both pregnant because they did it together. So they're both pregnant. But this guy gave pregnancy to a girl, and then that girl was either moved to, Ushago ama somewhere, far from the school, like what Isaac was saying, that the girl was taken somewhere else. Imagine if Isaac did not have any contact with the girl. Imagine that problem ingekuwa inamsumbua. And that's what the counselor was talking about. The mental health issues also emanate from adolescent engagement. When that girl is separated from him, ameenda, he'll have a lot of mental issues, thinking about, okay, what do I need, what do I need to do, how can I provide, and say that teenage pregnancy affects everyone. So when we are doing education in whatever sense, make sure that the male part is not left out.
I want to move to the mental aspect of it, and I think this is where now Rita comes in. Rita, umesikiza hizi stories zote. Now where do we go from here, or what are some of the things that you deal with in your field?
First, just to explain the adolescent stage, it's the stage, it's in psychology, it's called identity versus role confusion. I've heard Isaac and Susan say that walikuwa wanafanya tu juu marafiki zao, juu nini. At this stage, adolescents are asking themselves, who am I? And for them to identify who they are, they have to explore. And that is why most people will have sex during the adolescent stage, their first sex, because they are exploring. Others will engage in drug use because they're exploring. They're just trying to find their identity. And in the process now, that's where parents come in. The role of parents is to provide the right information, so that as adolescents explore, they do this with the right information. But again, as she has said, parents are not able to have this conversation. Tunafinyilia huku chini. Na tukifinyilia huku chini, huyu adolescents hautamkataza ku explore. They'll still explore without the right information. Then what will happen? At the end of the day, pregnancy will happen. They are not prepared. In facilities, there should be, Isaac spoke about haezi enda aseme anataka condom. Anajua because amesikia kwa marafiki hata anataka condom, but hata aezi enda kwa facility. That's how we speak about youth friendly services. Adolescent 15-year-old 16 akikuja kwa facility aseme mimi nataka contraceptive, will you be judgmental, ama will you give them information and services? Now that's where now the community comes in, and the healthcare providers. What attitude do they give these adolescents when they come for services? Are we open to conversation? And then I go back to parents. Sometimes I liked what she was saying about yeye kusikiza watoto wake. During the exploration stage, adolescents need to be listened in a non-judgmental stance, because wakigo through hizi challenges, labda amekrashia mtu, wewe ni ule mzazi utasikiza na ukose kumjudge, si kumput down, because even us as adults have gone through these experiences, and this is what happens. Ideally this is what happens. Are you there to listen to them? Ama utamwambia hapana, umeanza tabia mbaya, tusiongelee maneno. Ama ukisimama na kijana, you're giving the wrong information. Are you there to listen to them? Unamuuliza, hata ukiingia online unatafutaga nini, just being there for them, walking with them through the journey.
Ama una watch nini, unasikiza
nini, you know. And also I'll also speak about freedom. Adolescent stage, they need freedom to explore. But as a parent, una come in aje hapo kwa mambo ya freedom. You give freedom, but again, you do what? You limit kidogo. There are different parenting style. We speak about different parenting style. Kuna ule parent strict kabisa.
Jaribu kuliguza.
Ukijaribu tu hivi, utajua ujui. Now what happens with this child? Huyu mtoto atakaa nyamazie.
Sandi atataka kujaribu.
Atakaa nyamazie. Umemfungia of course. But huyu ndio ule mtoto atafika campus. Anakuwa na crisis kwa sababu akufanya nini? Haku-explore. And now we'll speak about, kuna wale wazazi watawaachilia kabisa, kuna wale wazazi watapeana freedom kabisa bila bila kulimit. So the role of parents is to guide, give freedom with limits, give the right information. Tukiongelea kuhusu sexuality education, it's not just about sex, ati ukifanya sex, sexuality education, it's a whole spectrum. Kuna components of sexuality education. And here we are speaking about even health. We are speaking about spiritual health, physical health, psychological health, the emotions, all that. Just giving the right information to adolescents. A lot is happening in their body. Kuna physical changes, wamechanganikiwa. Kuna wanasikiza rafiki anasema hivi. Kuna feelings, wanaanza kuwa attracted. Hawajui kama ni love ama lust. Hawajui hizo vitu zote. Are you there for them? Are you giving them the right information? Alafu kuna hizo needs. They have needs. They need to be loved. They need for affirmation. They need to belong. And that is why most adolescents will be inclined towards their peers. Kwa sababu wanataka kubelong, wanataka kukua kama wao. Isaac alikuwa anasema ati yeye alikuwa hata ajui kama alikuwa anapenda udemni kuchocha marafiki, you know. So as a parent now, nimeongelea sana kuhusu wazazi. As a parent, I feel within our context, wazazi hawana language ya love. Hawajui kucommunicate love. For them kuambia mtu ukijaribu hivi utajua mimi ni nani. Ama ukisimama hivi na kijana, you see that they care about their children, parents care about, but now they don't have the right language. Do you tell your child ninakupenda? Ninakuambia hivi kwa sababu nakupenda. Are you there for your child? Because Lynn ulikuwa umetaja hata hii. Because now mtu wa kwanza mtoto atasikia anapendwa na yeye ni that other partner. Ama mtoto anakuwa na fixations kwa sababu ataambiwa hivyo haiwezi kuwa assertive. Anakuwa na weekend ability to say no. Because nini? Hiyo ndio amesikia siku ya kwa. Na hata kama hataki sex, atakubali tu. Mbona? Kuna ile freeze response. When you're speaking about the survival response, ile response ya survival, mtoto hataki. But again, mimi sijaiambiwa napendwa. Wacha nikae tu hapa niambiwe tu hivyo.
Na pia kama unanipenda, usitoe hiyo mimba.
Kama unanipenda,
kama kweli unanipenda, usitoe hiyo mimba.
Unamconvince, unaona? Mama yake amwambiangi kama unanipenda, you see? Na huyo mtu mwingine anamwambia kama unanipenda. So hapo ndio issues zinaanzia. Alafu kuna hata issue ya pregnancy. You know, adolescents wako vulnerable sana to depression. Wako vulnerable to anxiety disorders, substance use disorder, kwa sababu hizi vitu zote wanapitia. Wanapitia hizi vitu zote but hawana safe spaces za kuongelea hizi vitu. Sometime back kulikuwa na hii conversation ya kukua shuleni, now we go to schools, kukua na mental health practitioners, trained mental health practitioners, psychologists and even counselors and even probably psychiatrists in schools where children can speak to these people and even get the right information, go through the identity stage na waweze kuresolve in a healthy manner. But again pia kuna kuwa na lot of challenges. Unapata hata wazazi wanalaumiana huku, walimu, hii ni role yenu, hii ni responsibility, but we also have to admit that we are not hatujakamilika, hatuna information kamili kama wazazi na hata walimu. So what do we do? Hata sisi tutrainiwe. Can we be trained on how to speak about issues, sex, issues development, and how to handle adolescents, not to prevent some of these things kama pregnancy na kulaumiwa. And then I'll speak about teenagers after pregnancy. Is it the end of life? No. Now we also come in. Let's provide conducive environment for these children to grow. They are still children. You see, when they get pregnant, it also presents a crisis in their lives, because now a role crisis. We spoke about identity. A role crisis because are they children? Are they still children? Are they mothers? Our role is to support them, provide conducive environment, support them financially, be there for them, listen to them, and that is how we will reduce some of these cases such as postpartum depression, because most of these adolescent girls, they will face postpartum depression because of what the stress they are going through. And also
what people are saying about them, you know. I mean, like Susan was saying, how people would talk about her, but who is helping her deal with it? Who is talking to her? Who is counseling her? Does she even know what therapy is for her, you know?
And even looking at the return to school policy, these are just recommendations to the government. We are working with a policy of 1994. We cannot work with a 1994 policy in 2021. I mean, the needs of Susie are so different with the needs of a girl who was born in 1994. I mean, it just makes a lot of sense for us to review some of these guidelines. Susan was speaking about her being forced to go back to school and do exams, and that is what the policy has to address. Should children go back to school immediately? Are they supposed to be given time? How do we deal with those issues?
Because I was also like, what was so hard to let her heal for even 2 weeks and then sit for that special exam?
You see, it's because the policy does not address some of these issues. So probably even when you're speaking about how to support them, we also need to think about it. How can we support them policy-wise?
Wow, I love, such a timely discussion, and I know we are almost coming to an end. So before I let anyone give their parting shot, what do you think are some of the observations we've made in this conversation? We'll start with you, and then you can just pass the mic.
For me, from the stories I am hearing, there's still hope. There's hope, because when pregnancy happens, especially during teenage, normally for adolescents, they lose hope. But again, just because we are having this conversation, different people, we have the media here, we have counselors, we have different people, we have Sauti Sasa, we are all speaking about this hope. And that is the most important thing. That's the most important thing to give to that young mother, young father at this particular time.
What would be your parting shot?
My parting shot is, let's provide a conducive environment for adolescents, girls, and even the boys to thrive despite pregnancy happening. And also mental health. Let's prioritize mental. There's no health without mental health.
Wow, Mr. Edward, your observation and parting shot.
Teen pregnancy is a concern, and it is not a small issue. Let us engage all parties, especially the parents, and also let us engage the boy child, not only focus on the girl child alone. Let us engage both gender so that we can rest this case. And also, as she has just said, there is hope. Let us support the young girls or the young mothers. Let us support them so that they can also meet their objectives or their goals in life. Yes. Parting shot is that let us unite and work together. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Mbuki, or Miss Mbuki,
Yes.
what would be your observation?
My observation is that we do not have a robust referral system. From the stories that they have shared, you can tell either they didn't have information, or they didn't have access to service delivery condom, or they didn't have a safe space, or a GBV, because teenage pregnancy is a form of gender-based violence. So we don't have safe spaces where these adolescents can be able to reach out to. We don't even have toll-free lines. The toll-free lines we have are basically on GBV. Can we also have toll-free lines sponsored by either government partners coming on board, ensuring that if someone has any questions to go about something, about, it can be even counseling. She really talked about mental health, and teenage pregnancy can result to mental health issues. Do we have that counselor on the other end that I can call anytime to really support? So I think for me is that we do not have a robust referral system, and what we are doing as Sauti Sasa, we are saying that let's everyone come on board. Like I said, it takes a village to bring up an adolescent as a young person in this country. So let's all come together to be able to ensure that we are all working together. If it's information, all adolescents have that access to information. If it's service delivery, common contraceptives, common any kind of service, either any issues with the STIs, And by the way, I want to say that for any adolescent that is listening to me, condom is the only contraceptive that it will protect you from STIs. It will for the girls, it will protect them from cervical cancer because you have the human papilloma virus that the men are the carriers. So the condom is the only one that will protect you from all these STIs and cervical cancer. So in case you're engaging in sex, please make sure that you have a condom because that's the only one that will protect you from pregnancy and all these diseases.
Or just abstain.
And just abstain. Yes. Honestly, we can't just wait. Like what he said, it's not love, it's just lust. Anakuja tu anakudanganya for a few ni chocha. Ni chocha kabisa. Please abstain. Lakini if you cannot, please make use of the condom. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Suzanne.
Mine is just to say that teen mothers are also human beings. And mine is to motivate and inspire a young lady out there. Mwenye alipata mtoi, they feel like it's the end of it. I can't pursue my dreams. I am a disgrace to the community. If Susan was able to say that all this has happened, but manze, I need to get the best out of my life. I am able to see that I have a bright future. I need to go to college. I took myself back to college. It's a struggle, but I know I must do that. I need to get the best for my baby. I need to get the best for my mother, for my sister, that it's not the end of it all. You have all it takes. Go out there, pursue your dream. Do that thing you've always dreamed of. I have always dreamed of being a source of hope and inspiration to other people. And that is what I am doing right now. I am running an initiative called Inspire Teenagers. We call girls, we talk, we also now bring the boys on board. We distribute sanitary towels to them. Because we have ladies out there kwa slum, akienda hustle na kona mtoi, apate tuso, hata fikiria kubuy pad, hata fikiria kuprovide mtoi. So we are trying to bring people on board. See that as we live with these girls in the community, there is change, and mine is just to tell a girl out there that you can do that. You can be all that you can. I am doing that, and I am becoming. And just to motivate someone out there, I was honored in May with the Zuri Awards. Yes, under the Young Achievers category. At that time, I was still 21. You can imagine a young 21 living in the slum, struggling to raise her child. But I want to raise above. I want people to know my name. I want people to know that this is not the Susan mwenye alipata mtoi na ako pale hivyo kwa ghetto ana struggle. I want people to know Susan as that brave girl who is able to overcome all this and be a source of inspiration to other people. And above all, God has been there, and God is the source of all this. His grace is always sufficient, and if we keep believing in God, we can achieve all that we want and make the community a better place.
So proud of you.
Thank
you.
you.
The sky is not even the limit. Stella.
Yes. Okay, my observation as a parent, I would say concerning this teen pregnancy, it's because some of parents, it's like they fear talking to children. You see, you are like, nikiambia mtoto wangu juu ya sex atanifikiriaje. Unaona? But I think we should be open enough kuambia mtoto the reality. Sasa si ile time yenye uko unaambia mtoto ananunuliwa supermarket, cause ukimwambia hivyo ataenda huko hivyo nje aonyeshwe venye inafanywa. You see, so it's a high time as parents to co-involve kwa watoto wetu. Unaona, if kama Isaac vile amesema alikuwa mambo na mabeshte, mimi as a parent na kuanga involve my son who is your friend. You see, I want to see your friends. Mamake ni nani? Wanaishi wapi? By the way, I have to do a follow up, and that my kids know. Hiyo wanajuanga. Even my daughter, rafiki yako ni nani? Even at school, I'll go and ask, my daughter rafiki yake ni nani? Anakuaga na mtoto fulani. So, nitachunguza huo mtoto. Anaishi wapi? The parent, you know, I have to know ako involved na nani. You see, cause tukiwa involved kwa life ya watoto wetu, tunaweza jua when something happens. Umeshika? Na tena huo mtoto atakuwa that free enye mpaka ataona enyewe let me talk to mom. Huyu mtoto ameniambia hivi, like how my son was open to me, ameandikiwa barua. Unaona, if I was not open, angeni face. Umeshika kama tungekuwa friends. I think watoto, it's a high time wazazi watoto tuchukue watoto as friends. You see? Yeah, we should become friends with our kids.
Yeah.
Alafu pia language pia you matter. You see, the way you talk to your kids ita determine kama huo mtoto atakuwa rebellious ama atakupatia respect. You see? The things pia you do as a single mom. This goes to all the single mom out there. Umeshika, unapataga single moms, unapata maybe, I know life is hard. You see, but there are some things even if you do, don't show your kids.
Don't do it in front
Umeshika,
of your kids.
Don't do in front of your kids. Ndio huo mtoto asikukosee heshima. You see, because once you start bringing men, like there was a time another 16-year-old girl confronted me. She calls me mom. So she was like, "Mom, I need to talk to you." I was like, "Okay, I'm here. Tell me." Akaniambia, "Aki, mimi niko na stress." Kwa nini? Mamangu kila siku anashinda tu ana complain ati mimi namkula kichwa, anashinda ananitukana. So I was like, "Mbona kweli unafanya?" Hakuna. So I said, "Let me talk to the mom." Umeshika? So the mom was like, mtoto amekuwa rebellious, hataki kuambiwa, ukimwambia kitu anakurushia mkono, anakubangia mlango. So I talked to the girl. Akiwa tu hapo. You know what the girl told me? Akaniambia, sasa aliambia the mother, between me and you, nani mwenye anafaa kuongeleshwa? Wewe mwenyewe ukishaleta wanaume kwa nyumba na unalala nao hapo, una expect? You see? So some things we do as parents ndio zenye zinafanya watoto wanafanya nini? Wana misbehave. So sometimes we should question ourselves as parents. Where have I gone wrong? Unaona? Yeah. And again, parting shot, I would like to the parents still. Usiangalie kenye makosa yenye mtoto wako amefanya. You see, let's say like tuseme mtoto hajatandika nyumba, then you are like, you are so dirty. Wewe hata uogangi, wewe ni mchafu tu. Hata hiyo uchafu sijui umetoa wapi. Wewe hata utai kuja kuolewa. Wewe ni msichana wa aina gani? You see, you shouldn't do that. Unaona, unamwambia enyewe mom, leo this house I look smart, inakaanga poa ikitandikwa. Unaona, angalia the fault, not the child. No, so I think if we do that, tunaweza win our children. Tunaweza wa win back na wanaweza kuwa open to us. Thank you.
Lovely. I love that. Don't look at the child. Look at the fault. Sindio? Si kumuita ngunia. Yes,
yes. So mimi niko na challenge kwa wazazi wote na pia kwa teens wote. Unapata sasa ukiuliza teen between mimba na HIV unaogopa nini sana? Most probably atasema mimba ndio naogopa sana. Juu mimba unawezaona. Unaona? Juu mimba ni girl child yanabeba, itaonekana kila mahali, si ndio? But for the boy child pia kuna ile pande ya HIV na magonjwa zingine like ya zina. So to the boy child pia ningependa kuwaomba mkiwa kwa nje mjichunge. Abstain. Na kama huwezi fanya hivi bila CD, acha ikae.
Hey, thank you so much. I love that we are having really open conversations. And honestly, I don't think there would have been an easy way for me to end my journey here at Tuko Talks if not for this conversation. I have a soft spot for young people. Being young also, ukiangalia nyuma and you see how my mom fought for me, I just want that for everyone, you know. I want that for everyone. So thank you even for honoring the request to come. This is yenye imekuwa na guest wengi sana, asanteni sana, and thank you so much Sauti Sasa. This campaign is wonderful and it's something that should continue. I want to live in a country where people can sit and Isaac can sit with Mr. Edward and have a conversation and not feel judged, you know. Susan can be able to sit with us and we won't look at ati aliza akiwa na miaka ngapi. And then Stella is able to tell us of how she teaches her 11-year-old how to wear pad and her 14-year-old how to deal with girls without feeling judged, you know. So for me, Sauti Sasa campaign, this is really amazing, Mbuki. I think it's something we Kenyans, we really want to see out there. Let's have this conversation. There is no shame in this conversation. Look at the amazing pointers Rita raised. Even me, I sat back and I'm like, ati adolescents inadefiniwa nini? Kujiju? the identity stage where someone is struggling to figure, yeah, who am I? So if again you are not telling your kids they are beautiful and they hear it from someone else, they'll think this person treasures them more than you do. So guys, I really want you to tell me what you feel about this conversation. I'm so passionate about it. I don't want it to end. Na pia nyinyi today mnatuchali mwenye mna watch, feel free, let us know what did you take, what's your take home from this conversation, because I think it's one of the most educative topics that I've handled, and I'm happy to have done this with the Sauti Sasa campaign. Guys, my time at Tuko Talks has come to an end. This has been such an amazing journey, and I am so proud to have done this as my final topic. And I want to thank my entire team, the ones you see here on camera and the ones off camera, the entire video department at Tuko. Thank you so much. Our editorial team at Tuko, asanteni sana, and to the management. And as always, I do this with my director and camera person, the legendary Edwin Ochieng. So brother, kuja hapa tuambie watu kwa heri. Kuja tu na hizo begega zako. Yeah, so I always do this with my legendary director and camera person. Brother, ebu ambia inafanya 1 2 1 2. Hivi ndio ananiambianga 1 2. Tell people how the journey I know has been good, but I'm glad this was our topic ya kumaliza mi kukalia hii kiti. So unaweza ongea na Mbogi dakika moja.
What I can say is we have really had a very good debate here, and it was very informative. I've really learned a lot, and looking forward to meet you once again.
Yes. The journey continues.
And the journey continues.
Yeah. So thank you so much, the legendary Edwin Ochieng, for doing and going, through so many of these stories with me. Si ulia pamoja, by the way, behind the scenes. Kwa niwaambie ile story ulikuwa unalia ukioperate camera.
Waambie.
I have to tell them the story he cried. This is the time I saw Edwin Ochieng's tears zikiteremka. We were doing a story of baby Naila. She has SMA, so the doctors had given her only 8 months to live. So as we were filming the story, I'm looking at the Mama Naila, I'm looking at Naila, and then I look at Edwin, machozi zimefika huko. So me, I'm like, between me now, who will handle this situation? So I know people just see me happen on camera, but I would not have done this without you, and I value you. So shukran.
Thank you.
Asante sana. Guys, that's it. Again, remember our conversation today. Siwacha nifunge show. So remember to tell me what you think about our conversation today. If you want to get hold of me, of course my email is right there on the screen. Tutaendelea kutell easy stories, and I just want to thank you for being so patient, for being amazing supporters, and for trusting me with your stories. So now, without further ado, situonane place ingine. So, bye-bye.